let you do the intro, and then we'll go back to the normal one next time, and then I'll let you do your intro there as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I am live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tapcaf Transmissions. So this is the podcast that Corey and I run. Usually we discuss Star Wars audiobooks, books, which are also often available on audiobook. But today we will be discussing instead Chapter 9 of The Mandalorian. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this format, we usually don't really respond to chat questions. Maybe things will be a little bit different at the end of this one, just because it's our episode discussions are usually a bit more freeform, or our discussions of non-book stuff, I guess, are usually a bit more freeform.
Yeah, it's a bit shorter, so there's less that we have to get through, and we don't have any emails for this week. So maybe some chat questions at the end, or if we see anything as we go that we want to pick up on, it'll be a bit.
Did we not get a couple of emails? I thought
I didn't check them, so that's as good as not getting.
Yeah, no.
I only announced 2 days ago that we were doing this, so I don't know if we got emails.
No, we did get a couple, I think.
About Mandalorian, or
about Mandalorian.
Darkest Night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm a liar. I'll open that as well.
So at least I think so. I mean, I'm pretty sure I got some emails.
Oh yeah, there's 3 emails right here.
Yeah.
Mando season 2 episode 1 question. Mandalorian. So I think those are about the Mandalorian.
Most likely. So yeah, guys, if we're not responding to chats or donations or whatever else, that's why. Corey is also live streaming this on his end, and afterwards, if you prefer the audio only version of this, and it's kind of cut down a little bit, more podcast version, then you can check out the links in the description, or search Tapcaf Transmissions as spelt on the screen, and Spotify or iTunes or whatever else. Anything you want to cover before we jump into this, Corey?
I think we need to get right into it, unless there's something you want to talk about, because there's one major point that I think we need to start off with, and I don't want to.
All right, let me just open up The Mandalorian on Disney Plus with muted, so I can watch it as we're talking. Hopefully that little trumpet wasn't enough for the copyright claim. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another very special episode of Tapcaf Transmissions, the only Star Wars podcast in existence, now not covering only books and comics, but also The Mandalorian. Because I think this actually... Did we do a Mandalorian, like, season review episode, Corey?
I think we talked about, like, a little bit. I don't think we ever did just a dedicated Mandalorian episode. We talked about it in the middle of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we really should have done a season 1 review episode before doing this. But maybe we'll do a season 2 review episode before talking about season 3 next year.
There's like that elusive TV episode of the podcast that we meant to do that's now like lost to time. That just never got.
Every week it was like, no, we'll do that another time.
Yeah.
And now here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Who would have thought it? That Paul Rudd thing from Hot Ones. I forget what he says, but it's like, look at us. Here we are. Anyway, I was thinking there is a slight possibility that maybe I can record an episode of this during my time off, if we keep it kind of short, just for content's sake, but we'll see. And on that,
I guess if we did like a Young Jedi Knights thing, that'd be a quick, because I don't know if I can go 2 or 3 weeks without talking to you.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure I can find time to yell at you or berate you or whatever else, but yeah, so for those who don't know, my child will have been born by this time next week, for sure. So if there's no podcast for 2 weeks, we're not 100% sure what's going to happen, but don't be surprised if there's no podcast for 2 weeks. But also, maybe I'll find time. It all depends. Like, the baby could be crazy. The baby could be pretty epic. We don't know. You can't tell these things. Some babies just sleep a lot. Some, like to start fires or whatever else.
Yeah, there's that old meme.
Yeah.
But
so you said before we started that, well, actually, I guess before we jump into Mando stuff, is there anything else in the wide galaxy of Star Wars news that you'd like to cover?
Well, there are the rumors of another Star Wars game coming out from EA Motive, which Charlie did a video on X2, But there's all that seems to possibly just be about Fallen Order 2.
Yeah.
So we'll see what kind of comes of that. But
yeah, so for those who don't know, basically there was a job listing for I don't what was the exact role? I didn't watch Charlie's video. It seemed kind of shitty, to be honest.
I forget what the specific job listing was for, but it does mention Star Wars, and it seems like it is most likely a Fallen Order 2 thing. I don't think it's another extra game on top of that already.
Yeah.
But we'll see what ends up going on there.
And if they're still just hiring, I mean, obviously they could be hiring in the middle of development, but if they're still at a very early stage of development, that means we might not see the game for like 5 years or whatever. So it could still be very, very far off.
Yeah, and EA already confirmed that they're looking to do more Star Wars games in the vein of like Squadrons and Fallen Order. So I don't think it should be a surprise to anyone that they are hiring for positions to make Star Wars games. It's not like the last, I guess, 10 years where it was just 2 Battlefronts and that's it. So we've hopefully got a few more things coming out. And between like Squadrons, the Mandalorian, the Thrawn books, and Alphabet Squadron on the book side, I've got a lot that I'm really looking forward to with Star Wars right now, which is nice.
And on that note, we did also get I don't even remember what the title is, but we did get a title for the new Thrawn novel, book 2 in the Ascendancy series. And it's actually releasing in May, which I've got to say is a bit earlier than I expected. I think May 4th, actually.
Yeah, I think it's called Greater Good.
Yeah, Greater Good, yeah. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I mean, it's kind of vague about what's going on in it. It kind of seems like it'll be even more about Chiss political conflicts, like inner conflicts and stuff. It seems like the new enemy is trying to like get within the Chiss ascendancy and break it apart from the inside. So we've got Nominor and the Yuuzhan Vong confirmed.
Yeah.
No one can be disappointed because I've told you guys what's happening.
Well, should we get into the Mandalorian now?
Yes.
Should we just get straight in? Because there's one thing that I think we need to talk about, like a big reveal in this episode that I know you would have been really excited for when I saw it on the screen. The first thing I thought is that Justin is probably just loving this right now. And that is a nice greasy brawl between 2 Gamorreans.
Oh, yes. That was beautiful. And not only that, but the scene where the surviving Gamorrean jumps out of the ring and tries to like take down the Mandalorian like WWE style, that was awesome. No, that first planet was really cool. Like, I kind of like how not every planet in the Mandalorian has like this epic backstory. It's just like, yeah, this is shithole Outer Rim planet number 6.
Yeah, and sometimes that shithole Outer Rim planet is Tatooine.
Yeah.
But I guess before we get too far into this, we will absolutely be talking about spoilers, just in case that there's not going to be a spoiler-free section of this.
No.
Which also means we're going to be talking about this as soon.
Do you want to just for brief spoilers for anyone who's surprised by that? Should we give our just very general impressions, like one sentence? Just
yeah, sure.
Okay, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was really good. One of the better Mandalorian episodes.
Yeah, probably
in my opinion. We'll talk about why.
Yeah,
but
top 4 for me, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
right. Spoilers now.
Yeah, go watch that, and we're going to talk about the episode. So that also means that because we're assuming people have seen it or don't care to see it, I guess maybe there's people who don't watch it and they just want to hear us talk. But we probably won't do the usual structure of like giving an overview of the each individual thing that goes on. But
I mean, another thing about the Mandalorian too is like, not that much goes on in a lot of episodes. Like, it's a lot of scenery and, just like visiting places and walking and kind of immersing yourself in the universe, which I enjoy. So you kind of just got to experience it for yourself.
Yeah, like I was kind of worried about Tatooine being back, but
so was I.
I think the way the show handles it, it's always interesting. My least favorite part of the episode was Amy Sedaris' character.
Yeah, she's not very good.
Yeah, like the dialogue that she has, it just To me, it's just episode 1 Anakin, where like
I don't think
R5 is rolling up.
Yeah, I don't know that.
R5 is rolling up, and she's like, "Oh, come on, get over here. What are we waiting for?" It's like, no, he's right there. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can chill.
Yeah.
But I think that was kind of the weak point of the episode, and it was right at the start.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as we were done with that, everything, like I was really happy to get the backstory we kind of did on some of the Tusken Raider stuff, humanizing them a little bit.
Yeah.
But also there was some stuff that was like the crate dragon scenes when you've got the offering of the bantha. The first time we got like that cave opening, that was like, oh, I get to see a KOTOR scene
yeah,
in
basically.
the show, and I thought that was really cool. But I do hope we get some more diverse locations in future episodes, and it seems like we definitely will.
Yes.
So I'm not that worried about the fact that this was set on Tatooine, and it makes sense considering what we have with Cobb Vanth coming up and Boba Fett.
Can I just say how wild it is as well that we're getting like pit droid antics in 2020? Like, I thought after like when we hit the 2000s there would be no more pit droid antics on our screens. Yeah, because that's a big part of like the comedy in the Tatooine scenes in episode 1. So it's kind of like, I found that kind of endearing about the episode, and this is kind of random, but the fact that like, yeah, this is a random thing from episode 1 that like is 20 years ago, but get the pit droids back in. And
I do love pit droids, so there's that.
I mean, they were in season 1 as well, but yeah, they had even more antics, I would say. Like, they're basically just physical comedy.
Yeah, that's actually something that The Mandalorian does a pretty good job of. That you also see a little bit in the sequel trilogy, not to the same extent, but
I'd say in like episode 7 a lot.
Yeah,
did that kind of comedy well.
Well, not just the comedy, but the seeing stuff in a situation that's more tonally original trilogy, but seeing prequel trilogy content in it. So like the battle droids in the super battle droids in season 1, pit droids now, even though that scene was more tonally
they were still pretty silly. Like they're I remember this scene where one like gets its eye stuck in the vacuum. That brought me like straight back to those scenes as a kid, which I don't know, I really appreciated that, because I mean you know, the kids that grew up on those movies, you know, they're in their 20s now. So
they
or we or 20s or older.
We're
or
old.
much,
Just say it. We're old.
Yeah, we're old. But I want to talk a bit about, because did you watch this twice or just the once?
I've watched it twice. I actually just finished watching it with Dana.
Okay, same. I was hoping you said that because I just watched it with Kelsey, and I asked her to give a brief 30-second review that maybe we can talk about at the end. But you mentioned to me that you thought some of the the acting was a little, I guess you didn't say wooden, but that's kind of how I took it, or a bit cheesy.
Not the acting, it was just some of the dialogue was a bit cheesier. Specifically, I really am thinking about the Amy Sedaris scene,
right,
where it was super on the nose with the pit droids, where she's like, oh, get away from the ship, he won't like that, but then he says, oh, let him do it. And that's kind of supposed to be, he had this relationship with IG-11 that had some growth for him, and maybe he's not as anti-droid now as he was at the start of the last season. And I feel like just having him say, no, I could use a once over, leave it at that, that's all we needed. But then she's like, oh, look, you've developed as a character. And then the droids start breaking. It's like, no, don't remove the character growth. Like that was basically what it felt like for me. That was kind of the one thing where
I was kind of wondering if that was the only scene for you, because I felt like the rest of the
thing, there was some dialogue that would happen where like what the other thing was just when he was explaining the plan to Cobb. It's like, shouldn't you have said this before? But there's obvious narrative reasons to do that. It just was a little bit weird in the moment.
I felt like there were a few characters in season 1 who were like that. The bartender in the 4th episode, or the lady in the cantina, who like she gave them the bone broth. She was like a kind of sketchy actor. I thought the blue guy in the 1st episode, who we know is in this season, had his kind of questionable moments where he hammed it up a bit. But as long as, and for me, as long as it doesn't get too crazy, I'm okay with it. I mean, it is TV, but generally, one thing that I noticed about this episode is I thought both the stunts and the visual effects were significantly better than season 1. Like, the first fight scene I thought was a lot better choreographed than most of what we got in season 1. Had like a good,
sure.
It was well filmed. It had good movement to it, and I felt like because we know they made some improvements to the volume. I think it's much larger now. And for those who don't know,
it's increased in volume. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but for those who don't know, this isn't filmed on a green screen or in location. They've got this. It's essentially like a giant curved screen. It's like a bunch of monitors kind of around the actors, and that's how they film, most of these scenes. Like they film interior scenes, some of them like this. They film most outdoor scenes like this. I'm pretty sure the entire show is shot in LA and London. So like when you're seeing these vast Tatooine landscapes, it's like they're standing in front of a screen, which I imagine is nice for the actors rather than a blue or green screen, because it's, you actually have context for what you're acting towards. And I think the effect is just phenomenal. I did notice in season 1, though, they limited themselves sometimes to shorter or medium shots when it feels like maybe they would have wanted to, and if the technology was better, they would have wanted to zoom out a bit. And in this episode, I really felt like they did a kind of better job with some of that stuff, especially the crate dragon fight at the end. I don't think we really got much like that in season 1.
No, even the ringside brawl that we got at the start was a bit more, you could see everything than really most things in season 1, except for maybe like the initial shootout with IG-11. But
even that played with like walls and stuff to keep it kind of minimized. But yeah, so I'm excited to see kind of where we go next. And I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't go to a Nar Shaddaa or a Coruscant or wherever else, especially as we get further into the series. I doubt they're going to spend their entire time in the Outer Rim, especially where we know they've got at least one more season they're doing, and probably more than that.
And go ahead, finish. Sorry.
Oh no, that was pretty much it.
Sorry. It's tech that's actually, like, the volume has been used by a lot of other companies already now, and I think Ewan McGregor even said, like, he's recently just gone in with the Obi-Wan robes on Tatooine. And so there's, for anyone who hasn't seen it, there's a kind of companion series on Disney Plus for
really
The Mandalorian.
Cool. Yeah.
There's like an episode on the director. There's an episode on the volume specifically, I think. And if you have a chance to go check that out, it's definitely worth watching. They kind of talk about how that all happened, and
and like the season definitely feels like it's got a budget increase, and I feel like this episode length was much better than like the 35-40 minute episodes we got for a few episodes last season. Like those felt too short, but 55 minutes feels kind of perfect for me.
Yeah.
And I believe Jon Favreau said that every episode will be about the same length this season. So that's like a lot more content. Like they get a lot done in this episode. So I don't know. That's exciting for me.
Do we know if it's the same set of directors or if there's anyone else coming in or anyone going out? Because I think we know Jon Favreau is obviously direct. He directed this one, probably Dave Filoni as well. But I don't know if like Taika Waititi and
I think Robert Rodriguez is doing one, which should be interesting. Carl Weathers is apparently directing one. Funny, Carl Weathers is in this series. He plays Grief Karga, of course. He's somebody who's kind of had some cheesy dialogue, but it kind of works for him.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars always has and needs a level of cheesy dialogue, so it didn't really detract from it. It was just those were the two examples that felt like they stand out the most.
Yes. But so we've also got Peyton Reed. Peyton Tucker Reed is an American. I don't know who he is, but he apparently will be directing an episode. He did like Ant-Man, which is probably my favorite Marvel movie. Yeah. So I'll be interested. I don't really know much about him, but yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Taika isn't. We still got Bryce Dallas Howard though, and so it looks like it's not staying with set directors throughout all the seasons, which I think is cool. I think they all kind of brought.
I think
interesting things
Taika helped with
episodes.
writing or something.
Yeah, but he's also got his own Star Wars project underway as well.
Mhm.
So
I was reading the Star Wars leaks thread. I kind of tweeted about this last night. I was reading the Star Wars leaks thread last night after watching the episode, of course, and somebody was like, I skipped ahead to see what happens, and then under the spoiler flare, they had somehow Palpatine has returned, which I thought was really funny, but it also kind of made me think about, like, this show really feels like it's being made with a lot of care. And I think it's an unfortunate comparison for episode 9, because that show, and I don't want to get into ragging on the sequels randomly too much, but it really does feel like kind of night and day with how crafted this show is and everything. I mean, we'll see how the second season goes. I don't want to say it's the best piece of TV ever. I mean, I love season 1, but if they can pull through on this, like, they'll have gotten a lot of credit from me, I think. But I guess I don't want to rip on episode 9 too much, unless it's behind a monetized YouTube video.
well, this is going to be monetized, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Podcast we haven't really monetized yet, other than the initial streaming of it. So we'll have to figure that out. Audible, contact us, but we'll contact you. But what is so really the big reveal is, well, first off, we have the Mandalorian going to Tatooine because he's looking for another Mandalorian, and the Abyssinian guy tells him on the weird planet, tells him the Mandalorian he knows of is on Tatooine. It turns out to be Timothy Oliphant wearing Boba Fett's armor, and later though we find out Boba Fett is also there. So
yeah, and just on that note, I've had a lot of people ask, well, how do we know that's Boba Fett and not a clone? It's because clones aging. Yeah, they would be much older. Like the classic is the Nick Saint. Isn't that the character that was his Legends name? The bearded guy in episode 6, who a lot of people have kind of. I think it's not been officially retconned to be Rex in canon, but it's been said that Rex is at Endor and he looks just like Rex in Rebels. So.
Yeah,
probably that guy.
I thought it was officially stated that
is. It may have been. It may have been. Yeah, but anyway, either way, he'd be much older because this is also.
Can you also like? This is 5 years after Endor.
Yeah, so it's another 6 years for those clones.
Yeah, as opposed to 45-ish, I guess Boba would be. Yeah, and that kind of matches Tamara Morrison's apparent age there. He's looking a bit rough for 45, but a bit older. Yeah, I mean he's been through some. He's been living on Tatooine. Look at what happened to Obi-Wan.
Look what happened to Aunt Beru. Like, God damn.
No one on Tatooine aged well at all, other than maybe like Shmi.
Yeah, true. It's like, okay, Aunt Beru in episode 4, we know that she is a middle-aged woman. Let's get a 19-year-old to play her. She looks like she's in her 40s, 39, 40. Yeah, and she looks in the movies like she's probably mid-50s, 60s. She's yeah. Owen
looks like 3 times as old as Klieg did.
Yeah, Owen looks like Klieg aged up, so it's like, it's a bit odd. But the other thing, we already got like the switcheroo of it being called, which we would know from Aftermath. This is a character that was actually previously established in the Aftermath books, who we know had Boba Fett's armor. So this is something that was pulled from those books. Some people may tweet that out, not realizing that's a spoiler. No shame in that if you didn't. If you didn't know, Cobb was a pre-existing character, but you see Boba Fett in the door, and then it's Cobb Vanth. And then at the end of the episode, can you imagine how, like, who would give a fuck? Like, no, that's not Boba Fett. It's another clone who happened to be on Tatooine and is following Boba Fett's armor. Just have it be Boba Fett if you're going to do that. That is the best argument for no, that's Boba Fett, not another clone. Yeah, I mean, the only other clone people give a shit about is Rex, and that's not Rex. It just clearly isn't. And having it not be Boba Fett and be Rex would be disappointing to the vast majority of Star Wars fans who haven't seen Clone Wars. But the Cobb thing is interesting because, so for those who don't know, in the Aftermath, I forget which book his story starts at. I think it might just be Empire's End, which is book 3. There's basically interlude chapters. Some of those chapters take place like in Maz's. Some of them take place on Coruscant. But there's this whole story of Cobb Vanth. His backstory is a little different than what we get in the show. It's probably been 2 or 3 years since I've read those books. But yeah, he's basically, it's really cool to see an EU character who's, kind of a minor EU character brought in like this. I think Alex said it pretty well in his review. If they had wanted to, they could have just chosen to not show what happened to Boba Fett's armor and just had Boba Fett show up in his armor. But instead, they went and kind of respected something that they could have very easily just ignored, which I really appreciated.
See, I was kind of, as soon as Cobb showed up with the armor, I was thinking okay, does this definitely mean Boba's dead then? Because he probably would have gone and gotten his armor back. So I was ready to message Mark and be like, no, you were wrong. But now I guess we all owe Mark an apology. And Alex owes Mark a Twitter account.
I already made my ruling, unfortunately.
Yeah, your ruling sucked.
It's binding.
It's not. It shouldn't be.
It is.
I'm advising my client to appeal.
Oh, okay. I'm going to hear that appeal right now. Ruling upheld. Sorry.
How often would the same judge hear the appeal?
Never.
Yeah. So
it can happen in the States sometimes.
Yeah. Is that the example you want to go with?
No.
It's 3 Canadians involved. Well, 2. I'm not involved. I'm just the one saying it should happen. So 2 Canadians and 1 American. That means that it should go to the Canadian courts, and then
whatever, dude. I guess I want to talk a bit more about Tatooine because I feel like Tatooine as a planet is kind of cool because it's it's very hot because there's 2 suns. But
Damn.
I don't know. It's kind of like one of the closest things Star Wars has to just a pure fantasy planet. You these giant.
Dathomir?
Well, yeah, but I just mean you got these giant, endless stretches of desert where realistically, could anything survive? No, but what we have is dragons and Sarlacc pits and marauding Tusken Raiders and shit like that. And I don't know. I mentioned a few times lately that I just read Tatooine Ghost by Troy Denning, and I don't know, it made me appreciate the planet a lot more, I guess. So I was kind of happy to go up there, to go back and to visit a new kind of location on the planet, even if it's not that different.
Yeah. I think we are starting to get a little bit in danger of oversaturation of things on Tatooine. Because we know how Cobb got Boba Fett's armor. Yeah. How did he get Anakin's pod racer? Yeah,
this episode came just short of the line of being too small of a galaxy for me.
Yeah.
Because with the R5, Skippy, I know that it's just a Star Wars Infinity story. Heck, I know. But with Skippy and with Anakin's pod racer and all that stuff, it's getting close to the line. But one cool thing they do in Tatooine Ghost is the place where Anakin slaughtered all those sand people. That's a haunted, or it's just a really dark place for the Tusken Raiders. So I thought we might get a reference to that or something in the episode. But yeah.
So would that crate dragon be the one that Obi-Wan was specifically impersonating?
I don't think so.
That's what we need to find out.
I think it's just a call.
So I guess the point there would just be, or the main question there would just be, how common are crate dragons? Because it seems like Mos Pelgo, Mos Eisley, and Mos Espa have they're kind of triangulated there, and the
Dune Sea
crate dragon was in that general area. So if that's around where Luke was ending up, then maybe those
it could be.
Maybe those Tuskens were returning characters from episode 4.
I mean, so in Legends there was like there were like 2 or 3 types of crate dragons. There was like 2 types of the canyon ones, which were like the smaller ones. Then there was the I think they're called greater crate dragon, which is like the one here. So and
see, I wasn't sure if Din was saying crate dragon or great dragon at certain points.
Yeah,
I think it could have gone either way.
I had the subtitles on, so Cobb's introduction was ruined for me because when he came in, it said Cobb Vanth, like his first line. It was like Cobb Vanth says. It's like, oh, okay.
Thanks.
But people made the Dune comparison, but to me, the better comparison is Tremors. And I kind of wish Kevin Bacon now had been Cobb. Or that one level from... Did you play Jedi Academy?
Yeah.
The level where...
The worm,
yeah, the
when you're
worm.
getting good parts.
Yeah. Which I thought... I was watching this and I was like, did that take place on Tatooine? But then I was like, no, because the Tatooine ones where you see Chewbacca.
So as soon as Mando started like rolling up on the town, I started thinking like, this looks like the town layout from Tremors.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then it starts going through. It's like, oh, this is Tremors.
Yeah,
but
I
can kind of forgive the small universe stuff when you have a reason to go to Tatooine, which he did, because. One of my fears with the season would be that it gets a bit too much towards referencing other characters and stuff. Yes. And there's still a chance for that. There were some other rumors that we probably shouldn't get into because a lot of people may have watched this episode.
And they're pretty much confirmed at this point.
Yeah. So I think most people will probably know what I'm talking about, but for those who don't, I'm very worried about how that kind of stuff is going to get handled. But I think this is a situation where it makes sense because there's the obvious connection between Boba and the Mandalorians with the Mandalorian armor, even though he's not a Mandalorian technically in new canon himself. So it makes sense that if Din is searching out Mandalorians for help, he would end up hearing about this happening on Tatooine. It makes sense that Cobb has the armor, and we know Cobb has the armor, and that then Din would get kind of, when he gets to Tatooine, there's only so much there. Yeah. So even the fact that, even if it turns out that that isn't just like an Easter egg something, and that Cobb has Anakin's pod racer, like he won the Boonta Eve race. It was he turns into a big Jedi afterwards, probably in a museum somewhere. Yep. And then Cobb's in charge of the whole thing. So it's not hard for me to think that on a planet with really 2.5 towns, and one of those towns is a street, that maybe a guy needs a way to get around, starts cannibalizing what is presumably a famous...
Well, that's kind of a thing in Tatooine Ghost, too, where Anakin's famous, but not because he's Darth Vader, because people don't know. He's famous because he's, what, is he 8 years old in that movie? He's an 8-year-old that won the Boonta Eve.
Classic.
Boonta Eve classic.
When everyone knows that win shouldn't have gone to Ben Quadranero.
I don't care what universe you're from, that's gotta hurt.
Do we get a Greg Proops cameo as that announcer?
I wouldn't hate it. I would not hate it.
That's the crossover I want. Who's lying, Mandalorian? Greg Proops in there calling mockery.
I haven't been watching Whose Line Is It, and I just forgot how goddamn funny that show is.
Have you been watching the new episodes or rewatching old ones?
New ones. I watch new ones.
It's still on, yeah.
Yeah.
I always feel like I need to watch it, but I never end up doing it.
It was like I took a week off, or not a week off, like a weekend off a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, and we were we went to this kind of hotel thing, and that we just had cable, and there was like Kelsey was getting ready, we were going out, and I turned on Whose Line Is It Anyway. I just laughed my ass off. So now whenever I see it on TV, I'm like, okay, these new seasons are really good.
Do they still like overload it with guests from other CW shows? Because those I always thought were awkward.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've only watched not that much, but
well, I watched the first few I think of the first season after it came back, and a third of the show at least would be a guest game with someone who is there to promote another show on the CW, and it was always just terrible. I hate the guest games, but anyways,
I've noticed the guests have been pretty funny.
Okay,
what did you think of Okay, so one thing I want to say about the rumored characters, I was a little bit worried before this episode, but I feel less worried now just because of how competently they pulled off the connections in this episode. And I'm at the point where I'm willing to... The Mandalorian hasn't really disappointed me yet. There have been a couple episodes I didn't like. I think my least favorite was probably the one where they go on the ship. They rescue the prisoner.
The prison, okay.
Yeah, that one and the other Tatooine one, but I think I like the other Tatooine one a little bit more, which is rare, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I'm willing to give them benefit of the doubt. Like, they've definitely earned my kind of... They haven't disappointed me much yet, so they've earned my... I don't know. My favor, I guess.
So, I was thinking maybe we could talk about this specifically at the end of the episode with just so people who don't want to hear
good idea.
About who it is, and then we don't have to talk around it as much. So maybe we'll even do the emails before then we'll have like a full conversation specifically about that.
Extra spoilers. Double spoilers. Because
juicy spoilers.
Timothy Oliphant's character being in the show was leaked as well. The leaks for this season have been more reliable than season 1. So, but yeah, let's you're right. Let's say that to the end, and we'll come back to that later.
Well, other than that, is there anything that because like most of my notes I've already kind of gone over here. Is there anything else you want to specifically talk about before doing emails and then maybe getting into that conversation?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think they showed a lot of restraint with how much Baby Yoda was used.
Yeah, he really wasn't. There were some cute reactions, and that was about his entire role right now. It wasn't an episode that was super connected to what we know of as the main plot yet, though I'm sure, like, for the season, Boba is probably going to factor in pretty heavily, and I hope Cobb does, because I do like Timothy
I like him too. I think they'll probably do the same thing that they did last season, where he has to kind of round up his friends at some point.
Yeah. And I think the comparison that I see a lot is that The Mandalorian is kind of like a tabletop RPG where The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda are the regular PCs, but then you have some of the NPCs that come in because their schedule doesn't allow them to be there for every game. It was like Grief, Kara, and I guess IG-11 up until he exploded the second time. But I do think that kind of makes sense. And like a lot feels like it's happening, but ultimately, if you look back, there haven't been that many individual events because it takes forever to roll through so many rounds of combat.
Yeah.
So it's a good analogy, I think.
One of the scenes that I really liked was the flashback scene where it showed the people on Tatooine watching the Death Star 2 blow up. I just thought that was like a cool little look at like how things went down. It's like, oh yeah, the Empire's gone, and now there's a power vacuum, and some shitty mining guild moved in like literally that night.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they shot everyone immediately. I feel like maybe they had other demands. I don't know if they actually killed anyone with that, or if they were just...
I felt like maybe they were just trying to take out the men or something. And then the truck that they run away on later, it's like a grav truck or a speeder truck. It's like pretty much the exact same truck that I had a toy of when I was a kid. And this is something that like they've been doing a few times, like just kind of things that were set dressing in the original trilogy, or not even, like with the Stormtrooper carrier at the end of season 1. It's cool to see that actually in action.
Yeah, and that was that one in particular, that Stormtrooper carrier, was always something that I think was a toy initially, and that was kind of it.
Yeah. And
it was one of the things that I always kind of dismissed as one of the just dumber product tie-ins, but it like looked much more functional and interesting in the show. And it really turned me around on something that I really thought was one of the dumber parts of the Star Wars universe before. And so they definitely handle that kind of thing really well. But the other question that I had was, how many missiles did...
I was thinking about that too.
Were there...
I think he probably had to trade for one, right? Or something.
Maybe, but would they all be... Is there like a universal plug-in of missiles he could just put in the armor? Because he shot the one at the truck, and then he shoots one at the crate dragon to get its attention.
Yeah. I'm looking at his armor now, and it looks like, I never noticed this, it looks like Boba Fett's backpack has 2 reserve missiles in it. So
that's what I thought too on the sides.
Yeah. But in the later scenes, does he still have... Yeah, I'm trying to get a good look. What do you think about Boba Fett's armor? Like, do you think it's gonna be that helpful? I mean, some people were saying, yeah, he's only got those platings, but there seems to be some sort of mesh underneath too that he uses.
Yeah, I don't know if he had. I think he just had the plating because he had that like red material thing that was probably another.
Well, there's like a beige kind of.
He's not actually Boba, but
yeah. Well, there's like a beige underlay as well. It's very small. It only covers like pretty much the area in between the chunks.
But as someone pointed out, I don't think he would have been able to use that because you can't just wear someone else's clothes; it wouldn't fit.
That's true.
And I think that's where that applies. But I think it'll mostly be just a way for us to learn more about Mandalorian culture and the fact that Boba has the armor,
but is also probably not a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Like Din is not like he's not on the right path here. He gets completely sidetracked. He doesn't like somebody else wearing his armor. I'm kind of wondering whether the Mandalorian is going to have like some big spiritual crisis at some point in this series because he keeps meeting all of these really epic people who aren't Mandalorians. So I'm wondering if like either he's gonna loosen up or if he's going to, especially where like his culture is pretty much dead at this point. The Mandalorians have been wiped out. So I don't know.
Or maybe it'll be like a reformation of Mandalorian culture in some ways, where they learn that, hey, we can actually drink stuff ourselves if we take these off.
That would be more similar to how it kind of was in Legends, where like the Mandalorian was. I mean, it's a creed in this too, but it's kind of a looser thing in Legends, at least later on, where like Boba Fett took his helmet off all the time.
Yeah. He's got a shower sometimes, I think.
Yeah. But I just
in private, but
yeah. Also, I just checked and yeah, he doesn't. He's got a new missile, but it doesn't take one of the ones on his back off. So I guess he probably just traded for one or something. On that note, I like the scene where Cobb orders the drink and the Mando's just like staring at him like, yeah, you're clearly not legit.
Yeah.
I thought that was really well done. He like conveyed a lot of just like, are you fucking kidding me?
If you don't get a straw with that drink, so help me God.
You better be putting that in your butthole or else you're in trouble. What did you think of the crate dragon?
I thought it was. I was trying to figure out if it had legs in this, and it seems to just be the direct interpretation of the episode 4 skeleton.
It's like a snake, basically.
Where maybe it does have legs that are underground, but it seemed to not. So it's more of a crate worm. You can take that as O or Y, whichever you prefer. And I really. I thought they got a good aesthetic with it, where even if it doesn't have legs, it still had the right like dragony appearance, while still like a Star Wars creature.
Totally.
Which the crate dragon in KOTOR, even I felt was a little bit too.
It's kind of lame looking, yeah. There's this really cool book called. It's kind of like a nature book set in the Star Wars universe. It's like written from an in-universe perspective. It's got all these cool cross sections. And that's got a really cool image of a greater crate dragon with these big legs and stuff.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it could still be there. I think it was kind of ambiguous enough where it could have legs. Because the only scene where we really get a good look of it, it's been, like, pretty much blown up. And there's also the implication that because he's got the kind of... They're showing, like, the plan, and he's got the carcass or the skeleton out, and Cobb's like, well, that's way too big. And it's like, no, you're just not seeing the whole thing. So there could be more underground, that maybe those big legs help it swim or whatever, because it was moving really fast.
Yeah. And it was in a straight line, not a wavy line. So
yeah, that's another good point.
But I think a big part of it is that it's harder to make a puppet with legs. But what else was there about that? Shit, there was something I wanted to say, and I don't remember what it. This is actually more about just references to other material coming up.
The pearl,
and I think that the melon, not the pearl, is definitely one that's like been a standard point for crate dragons for a while. So it was really cool to see that come up.
Yeah,
it almost feels like with the Mandalorian being even though it's a TV show, the fact that it's live action has such high production values,
Mm-hmm.
you normally would expect that, like the kind of the way I think I end up thinking about it, and you may as well, where if all this stuff gets introduced in books, and then when we hear movies coming out, we think, okay, well, we just have to accept that that's going to get
Mm-hmm.
kind of tossed out a little. But the Mandalorian has been one of the better, like mainline or live action, high production quality productions to
Mm-hmm.
kind of bring in those things
Totally.
and to have that chance to see this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the other example of that is like even just the melon, the Tuscan's melon. I forget what it's specifically called, but that comes up in like a certain point of view
Oh, really?
from
Oh,
where I can't remember where exactly, but it's like a story from Obi-Wan. And I think it is a certain point of view
mm-hmm.
where he's like he comments on how it just tastes like complete shit.
Yeah, but it's an offering, so you got to drink it.
Yeah, because like it's the whole thing about how the Tuscan Raiders think that all the water is supposed to be given to them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why they're raiding people. And Din kind of makes allusions to that without outright stating
Mm-hmm.
that part of it. So if you know the lore about that, then it's still there, but without it feeling like it needs to just shove it all out there at once to say like, hey, we're doing this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that's really well handled. That's one of my favorite parts about the show, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, you can contrast that with like, again, I'm not trying to rip on the sequels, but you can contrast that with the sequels where it just kind of feels like it never feels like the movies ever take what has happened in the expanded universe into account. Sometimes it works out.
And you can say that with the prequels as well.
Yeah, prequels, Clone Wars too, even. Sometimes it works out that it lines up, but like in episode 9, they completely changed Poe Dameron's backstory because they need to have him somehow connected to a new kind of love interest. And it's just like, okay, clearly they don't care about continuity, but then we see like the...
and that was a poor choice for a lot of reasons with Poe.
Yeah, that was a very poor choice. Especially because but they had, 3 years or 4 years of kind of lore behind the character at this point. That was just literally, they threw away because like JJ or whoever made the decision there couldn't be bothered to go what was in the expanded universe at that point.
Yeah. Like JJ is super precious with how he feels about the original trilogy, but with other stuff he's not as concerned. And for the most part, that doesn't bother me when people don't go along with it, but it feels like a lot of the choices JJ made were making those choices for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
And the end result makes it harder to look past the fact like that it does mess with other parts of the lore, or that he was trying to do these things without learning that they didn't actually work the first time Star Wars tried them. Don't bring Palpatine back like that.
Yeah.
But well, I guess with Palpatine coming back, it did work okay the first time, because like we both thought Dark Empire 1 was all right, but then Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End, and maybe just don't do that. But
yeah, it's nice that it feels like there's someone who's actually using the like the Lucasfilm story group and like gives a shit about it, because they said the same thing. I mean, there's an argument to be made about like, do you really want something written by committee? And probably not, and that was like the thing about The Last Jedi, like there's a lot of talk about how Rian Johnson wrote the entire thing and had total freedom, which is nice, but on the other hand, like it does help to have kind of a coherent vision for the universe as well.
Yeah, and like that's something that we both like, but I'm kind of accepted it with most things, that it's like, this is something that I really like when we get it, but I'm also not upset when we don't necessarily, unless it is something
like
that
a Poe
is
Dameron thing.
Yeah, where the choice just doesn't really, even on its own, make as much sense. Because like with any book or anything that comes out, there's kind of the basic understanding that I think Lucasfilm has internally, and most of the individual authors would have, and especially Timothy Zahn. So this isn't like a Legends versus canon thing. If you want to point to someone who really thinks their stories are internal to themselves and nothing else, that is Timothy Zahn.
Yeah.
But like they're trying to tell their individual story as the priority, and that should be the priority. But when we can have it work like this, and when Dave Filoni in particular is like making sure that some of this stuff happens, then I think that is where I love Star Wars the most.
Yeah, I mean, especially where you're not giving up your vision to do it. Like, it costs nothing to have a scene where they're you know, where they yank a pearl out of a giant fucking sandworm. Like that costs nothing to story. Like that's not hurting your vision unless there's some reason it is. But yeah, I don't know. It's good to have that, and I'm glad we do. And you're right. Honestly, for me, I think the Mandalorian is probably my favorite Star Wars thing after Return of the Jedi, after the original trilogy. Maybe the Thrawn trilogy I like a little more, but I think I like it more than the prequels, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'd co-sign most of that.
And that's funny because
is still obviously the best, but you know,
it's funny because not that much has happened yet in the show.
Yeah, but
I love that
more in the world building, then that's kind of what we're coming at it from. I think most of the time, so it makes sense.
And the thing is, too, this is the story that, like, this is the kind of shit that people have been talking about forever. Like, why don't they make this? You're like, and you're gonna make fun of me, but this is kind of like this is more than just like the slice of life thing, but this is kind of just a story told in the universe. Because the greatest thing about Star Wars, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people agree with this, is the actual world itself. Like, yeah, the story about the Skywalkers is pretty compelling, but it's really like when I was a kid, I liked being pretending to be Luke Skywalker because he was a Jedi, not because the character himself is really phenomenal, although I love him. So this is like making use of all the great things in the universe and telling a story that's not like burdened down by like, oh, we've got to have fucking Darth Vader involved here somewhere.
Yeah. Like the stakes can be whatever the stakes need to be for the sake of that individual story, and the story can be itself rather than trying to find a new way to put the same stakes or the same characters and have to raise those stakes for those characters, because Luke isn't going to be, you're not going to have like a 28 episode series where Luke is essentially trying to get Baby Yoda home. That might be one novel,
exactly.
one episode or something. But here we get to really see those places and kind of chew on that stuff without having to worry every episode about how there's going to be a massive Imperial invasion fleet. When the Imperial show up with like Moff Gideon and stuff, it's proportional to the scale they have, and it lets you see that kind of more granular universe.
I think some people are still getting used to that too, or may never get used to that, because there's definitely people who are like, but I don't understand the point of this show. Which, to be fair, this episode you could describe, people would describe it as filler in a negative way. I wouldn't do that. But there are people who are going to be disappointed at the end of this series if the Mandalorian hasn't changed the course of galactic history. Because that's what they're used to at Star Wars. I hope this show kind of prepares people to not always expect stuff like that, so we can get our MedStar TV show or our, whatever else. And I also think that the Bad Batch show, of all things, could be good in that way.
Yeah, I see. That's the one thing that I'm really not looking forward to that much, because I just don't like those characters very much.
I totally understand that. Yeah, I totally get that.
That was never, and I understand, like, that doesn't mean it's bad, and that doesn't mean I'm telling you you're wrong if you're looking forward to it. Anyone, that's just not really. They're not my kind of character archetypes. I don't like the A-Team, and it's just cartoon A-Team.
No, I totally get that. I'm not a huge fan of them either. I did like the episodes they were in, but I just think it's going to be, I think that will be a show similar in tone to this, where it seems like they're going to be smugglers or something, because they've like defected from the Empire, or they've left, whatever. I don't know the details. I don't think anyone does, but
well, I mean, obviously I'm going to watch it, but
yeah. There'll be 12 episodes about it on Tapcaf Transmissions for the first season, but I mean, the Obi-Wan show could be like this, although that, of course, is using an established character, so it's not quite the same.
But it's an established character who can only do so much in the period, so it's kind of, I'm sure this will still be like,
yeah,
it'll still happen, but maybe we'll get like the Rebels Darth Maul duel again, just have those storylines kind of converge there. Would be
cool. I would be. That almost makes me wish they hadn't. Although Rebels does a good job of like the old wounds type of thing, I think it would have been awesome if they left it to live action.
Well, what if we just get that scene again?
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I would agree. Especially because
that's probably our best chance for a lightsaber duel in that, other than like Obi-Wan runs off to help Yoda deal with some.
Josh Crate's not going to be here. Say Biff Fashy Dark Jedi. I mean, we could have Darth Crate and then the Darth Crate TV show after episode 9. Who knows?
Are Tuskens the same in canon as Legends as far as that goes?
I'm
like
not sure.
Just people under.
I'm not sure.
They're people, but humans.
Is that what they always were in Legends? I wasn't sure. I was wondering that today. I never really knew.
I thought they always were that, but like as soon as Asher Ed and Sherad Het come in, at least they are, and there are at least Tusken Raiders that are that.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if they had... Because I remember the Tatooine level in KOTOR 1 kind of deals with this a bit, but I couldn't really remember very well. What was I going to say? But yeah, I don't know. This show's got... I'm excited to see where they take it. I honestly love the Western feel of this show. Like, I really like watching the... People call them the filler episodes between, I guess, episode 3 and episode 7 of Mando season 1. I really love episode 4. I think episode 2 is my favorite of the series, and not a lot happens in that. Just because, I don't know, like I really like Westerns, and like I kind of like getting lost in just like the, just getting lost in like the universe itself rather than having to blow up a Death Star every time. Yeah,
4 is the one with the ATST attack on the village, right?
Yeah.
See, I really like that because it turned like an ATST into this big menacing thing. Like that's the big problem that needs to be solved is an ATST.
Exactly.
Where if you look at anything else, like, oh, that's who cares about that? Chewie's gonna just point at it and it'll fall over or something.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, another thing too, I think we've talked about this before, is if you don't have that 3 episode break between 3 and 7, it's just constant action. And like this show has done a good job of making real threats seem real. Like the end of episode 7 and 8, part of the reason why those are so impactful is because you've spent episodes where, like episode 2, for example, or episode 4 are really just about Mando's developing a relationship with Baby Yoda. And if you don't put in that work, which does sometimes mean, you're not always crashing a Star Destroyer, like the payoff isn't there.
Yeah.
So...
Like, that's why we're able to have an episode like this, have him dragging Baby Yoda around and not question, like, why does he care so much? Because we know why he cares so much now. Even if Baby Yoda isn't really doing much for the episode.
I gotta say, I'm also watching this right now, and that little bit of worm steak that Mando took looks pretty goddamn tasty.
I was gonna ask about, like, that. Is he just hungry? Is it just
I imagine it's worth a shitload of money. I figured he was going to use it to pay off his fees for docking.
That would make sense.
I mean, I was like, man, I want to have a steak now.
I forgot to take out steaks for tonight, or else we were going to have steaks.
What did you do?
I made pizza yesterday, so we still had some left. Thank God. But we're going to have those steaks tomorrow. Our last barbecue of the year, probably. I know Mark, Templin Institute's out there barbecuing every day in the snow right now. Which
is it snowing right now, actually?
He was barbecuing when it was like snowing out for him.
Wow. We haven't had any snow yet, thankfully.
But I don't know if
Alberta's a hellscape, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Fuck Alberta.
If you don't barbecue in the snow, what are you going to do?
I mean, I'll probably keep mine out, but I haven't barbecued in a bit.
Yeah, I guess you guys have gas grills, and for me, I'd have to go like.
Oh, right, you got charcoal. Yeah, yeah, that's the thing with gas grill. If you turn it on, you're done in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Do you want to hop into the emails and then have our?
Should we talk about the wife/girlfriend reviews first? Did Dana give you her impressions?
Not really. Like, her biggest comment was when he was driving out to the settlement with Baby Yoda and kind of the saddlebag, and how he's like looking out with his ears flapping and stuff. Like, oh, he's having so much fun, so cute. That was basically her takeaway. So, what was Kelsey's?
First of all, Gus knows the word Yoda, so I gotta watch the next one when he's awake because he'll be pointing and he'll go. He says Woda because he can't say the Y very well, but very cute. And he's got a Baby Yoda he sleeps with every night, and like it's so cute. I go in his room and he's like clutching the thing, like hugging it. It melts my heart. But she was actually like, I was surprised because I thought like, okay, she's gonna be on her phone the whole time. She's not gonna be that interested. And then I was like, she was pretty engaged in season 1, like, and like she's not a huge Star Wars fan otherwise, but like she wanted to watch every episode like the day it came out, and we'll probably end up watching one at least the night it comes out if the baby's gonna be crazy one night. But she was really engaged at the beginning, and then I definitely felt that she was, as the plot became kind of sandworm focused, it definitely lost her a little bit. And I talked to her afterwards. I was like, give me your 30-second review. And she really liked Timothy Oliphant. I agree, even though he looks really scrawny in this for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I can kind of see. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I can kind of see the same kind of thing from Dana. I didn't ask her explicitly of her thoughts on it, but like she's watched all the movies except for episode 9 so far, and most of it is just like, this is a thing you're interested in, so I'll suffer through it. But with the Mandalorian, she seems generally like on board with watching it. Parts of it that she actually seems interested in seeing, and like when we were watching the first part of it with the recap, there were parts of it I think she didn't watch every episode of season 1. I don't think she watched the end of the last episode at least, and she was confused about having missed some of it. And I even said, oh, we'll go back and rewatch, because this episode I told her wasn't super reliant on that stuff. So I said we'd go back and rewatch that, and she didn't say no. So I guess that's a good sign.
Kelsey did say, she was like, it did feel like a bit of filler to me, which was weird for her first episode. And I was like, I understand where you're coming from. I don't agree, but because I like the kind of Western style where it's like, you know, you're going on an adventure. Like, to me, this is the perfect show to like grab a beer or like a whiskey and just like kind of soak in. But she felt that she thought it was a bit weird for first episode, and I totally get that. I feel like there will be a lot of people, or at least some people, feeling like that after.
Yeah, I think I agree with her. Where like this could be like great second episode, but as a first episode, it is a little bit weird that it wasn't something that was slightly more connected to the overall plot. Because I think if this doesn't turn out to set up a lot of what happens in season 2, like if the Boba Fett angle doesn't really factor into it as much, then I could see it looking a bit stranger in retrospect, depending on how much it factors in.
That's a good point.
But
do you have predictions for episode 2? What's gonna happen?
I'm torn on whether Boba's gonna like confront him on the way off the planet.
Because what's he been doing? Why hasn't he left on his own?
Why hasn't he just kicked Cobb's ass?
Yeah.
That was why I thought he was probably dead.
What if he was trapped in the Crate Dragon cave?
That, I guess, would that then be
no, because he's got sand people weaponry. Pit. What?
Yeah, that wasn't the Great Pit of Carcoon, and like this.
I was wondering about that. Like, is that a Sarlacc that's just like in sideways, which is a cool idea? Because like
it seems that way, unless it was a pit above and then the Great Dragon.
Because it could have just been like maybe the Pit of Carcoon's got like a tentacle coming out somewhere. I don't know.
I think either the Sarlacc already spit him and his stuff out, or he crawled out and ditched the armor or something, because the Jawas already had the armor a long time ago. So like Boba's been out and about. He had his cloak. So he's just been on Tatooine. Obi-Wan's just been on Tatooine.
He's got sand people weaponry by the looks of it. I think he had a gaffy stick, didn't he? Or yeah, I think he had a gaffy stick.
He's had their rifles, I think, and maybe a gaffy stick. But I think he's probably been looking for a way off the planet, and so that's going to involve maybe a confrontation with.
It's been a long ass time though.
Yeah,
but it is it's the wastes. Like you can't walk it. You just can't. So I don't know. I'm sure they've got a reason. So we'll figure it out. Yeah. Because I imagine that the Boba Fett angle was one that Jon Favreau probably planned for a very long time. Like I imagine that was kind of one of his main kind of selling points of the show.
Yeah. Because there's the potential that it's setting up for Boba Fett movie to become a thing again that kind of turned into the Mandalorian to begin with. Or was probably going to be what the Boba Fett standalone movie was.
Yeah.
So maybe we're getting that again. But yeah, that's kind of, if I had to put money on it right now, then I'd say the episode probably opens dealing with some sort of confrontation with Boba, or
maybe he escapes and then we see him later or something.
Yeah.
So are you a Boba antagonist or a Boba ally? What do you think? Is he going to be a good guy or a bad guy in the show?
I feel like he has got to be the flip side of Mandalorian culture, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I agree, because he's got no honor.
Kind of showing the first off that he has the armor. He's not necessarily a Mandalorian, but just a way to kind of be a foil for the Mandalorians. So I feel like even if he's not like outright fighting the Mandalorian the whole time, then he's at least an antagonist in some sense.
I can definitely see him securing his armor by the end of next episode.
Yeah.
Or taking parts of the Mando's armor or something, but that'd be interesting. But yeah, I think we'll probably have a confrontation next episode, and then he'll disappear maybe. But it's hard to say. But yeah, is there anything else you want to mention, or should we move on to?
No, I think we should get to the emails, and then we'll have that quick talk about the other characters.
Sure. All right, let me just open them up here.
So we will just stick to the questions for this week that were specifically about the Mandalorian, but yeah.
Okay, let me just open them up here on my phone.
Joel's asking about the warlords and stuff, the Imperial angle of it. So maybe I'll start that one as well, and we'll come back to that on one where they show up a bit more as well.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that a bit last time as well. Yeah, okay. Maybe we'll talk about that in the episode when we get more warlords. Let's see. So we've got one from Neil who says, "Hey guys, this was a really fun episode. Nervous going into season 2, but it was a fun watch. I especially like them going all into the Western tropes, slowly riding his teeth through town, the meeting of the saloon, running off into the sunset, and he says just really enjoyable. I didn't think there was much to gripe about. So more of a general review than a question. I think that's kind of where we both came down on as well."
Yeah.
Justin said, "Has your ruling on Templin v Expanded changed, or does it stand?" Well, it stands. I made my ruling based on the information we had at the time.
But it will change on appeal, right?
Well, typically on appeals, there's a pretty stringent test for if you're changing a determination of fact on appeal. It's very, very difficult. Questions of law, it's a reasonableness, or it's a correctness standard, but questions of fact, I just got to show that my decision was reasonable, and I think it was based on.
But was it proper for there to be a ruling at that time? Anyway, that's where I think if Mark hadn't accepted the ruling in the first place, he should have had a lawyer with him.
Well, I mean, it's not my choice. That's not my position as adjudicator.
Yeah, they basically went into arbitration at a point where he shouldn't have agreed to that, and it's.
I mean, not even arbitration. I laid out like I am the Supreme Court of
Star Wars,
of our small group of friends. Yeah. But no, I mean, I guess we still don't know for sure what was going on at Tatooine. But...
Yeah, we don't know who that was. Yeah, because it could have been Boba with the boots still. Maybe he didn't lose his boots.
Yep.
And because he had a cape and Cobb didn't, and the person in the first episode in the scene in question had a cape, and we don't know which character was that. Was that Toth or the other, or the girl? Because if it was Cobb that went and got them, they would have been here.
Yeah.
So that whatever happens with Boba is going to factor into that other character. I really need to rewatch the first season because I don't remember which of those that was.
Do you think it's possible that Boba has just been living his life and maybe hasn't wanted to leave until now?
That is possible. Just wants to be a simple man making his way in the Tatooine dune wastes.
Yep. I'm very interested to see. Tamura's a good actor. I'm very interested to see how he handles this role.
But Justin also asked, was Cobb Speeder one of the engines of Anakin's pod racer? We talked about that a bit. Where it's meant to be. It's meant to at least look like it. Whether that's an Easter egg or because it's Anakin's pod racer, maybe we'll never know. But
he also asked about the scene at the beginning. I've been kind of scrolling through this episode the entire time. I assume that there's some sort of like the Gamorreans are shielded because he's asking how come they're not basically laying killing blows. I'm just looking now to see whether they've got any sort of belter on or anything.
Yeah. But I think it was because they're using vibro axes. And that's why the blue light was happening.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they hit each other with the
axe. I actually looked. It looks like one lays a kind of good blow on him at the beginning, but he actually just misses. And then all the other times the two axes are colliding, I think. So
yeah. I think that's just because they're vibro axes and they're or maybe even like electro axes or something, ion axes or something. But I don't think they ever would have otherwise hit it. Yeah. I don't think there was any skin to skin or skin to axe contact.
Yeah, I'm watching now. Yeah, I don't think so. So yeah, it looks like just the show's been really embracing the vibro weapons, which I appreciate.
Well, okay, here's a question though. Is what Din did with the ion pike more impressive or less impressive than Neytiri?
Wait, what did he do with the ion pike?
When he was coming out of the crate dragon.
Oh, that's way less impressive.
That's less impressive?
Yeah, okay. For sure.
So our last question of the week is from Christopher Blakely, who asks, where did the crate dragon and Sarlacc originate from? Well, their first appearance is episode 6 for the Sarlacc, and then there's a crate dragon skeleton in episode 4, which has kind of been developed into the crate dragon over the last forever.
I assume it came from either the crate dragon may have came from the novelization for New Hope. I'm just gonna check now, or West End Games would be my guess. Let's see.
I think it's in the novelization because like the skeleton got picked up on, and then I think isn't that where it's first called a crate dragon call that Obi-Wan does?
I don't know.
Am I way off on that?
No, that sounds right. It was at first identified as a crate dragon in the New Hope novelization.
Okay.
The imitation call, the skeleton, I think, and the call were first identified in a New Hope novelization. So yeah. I wasn't sure. I know that there was like a source book all about Tatooine, or I think Tatooine got a lot of coverage in one of the early West End Games source books.
Yeah.
Maybe is this the one? Yeah, Guide to the Star Wars Universe. Actually, that's not West End Games. That was
Wizards of the Coast.
No, it was actually not a source book. I don't think. I think it was just an illustrated reference book.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There are things in this life that aren't about tabletop games. Didn't think that was true.
Well, especially when it's like 80s Star Wars lore. There was also a Galaxy Guide book in like the 90s, but that would have been interesting.
All right. So I think this is going to bring us into the last part of the episode where we're going to talk about speculation spoilers. So stuff that hasn't been necessarily confirmed, but if you are just trying to avoid spoilers for future parts of the season and have been trying to avoid all rumors and everything, then you may want to head out right now. We will be talking about potential character appearances, potential crossovers.
So spoilers not just for this episode.
Super spoilers.
Yeah.
Like Mythosaur, get out of here.
Yes.
So yeah. Anything you want to say? Will people find the X at the top of their screen?
I will say that that Twi'lek at the beginning looked a lot like a sexy Squidward.
Not quite as thick as the Gamorreans, though. So,
I mean, the forehead I would say was thicker.
Yeah, actually, those were relatively scrawny Gamorrean.
Yeah, they were.
They were buff, but they weren't quite as wide as normal.
They weren't eating like the Jabba's Gamorreans, that's for sure. Yeah.
Jabba's Gamorreans had some real meat on their bones. But I think everyone's gone.
Yeah.
So, yes or no?
So Ahsoka's almost definitely at this point going to be in the show.
Rosario Dawson.
Yeah, as Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. Almost certainly at this point. I would bet $1,000 on it. There's just too much indicating that she will be. Even Disney, one of the Disney Plus accounts tweeted about her today. Did you see that?
I did not.
It was like, hold on, let me just pull it up. Star Wars leaks. Where is it? I can't find it. But yeah, there's so much. Like Apple TV today emailed saying that that Rosario Dawson's in the new season, and oh yeah, here we go. Disney Plus account. They wrote, it's been taken down, but they basically just wrote that like Rosario Dawson will be playing Ahsoka, like straight up. So she'll probably be in it. The other one that I've heard is Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan. I've heard that from somebody who's like 100% on it, like heard it from her. So I'd say that's pretty likely.
See, Bo-Katan makes a bit more sense to me. Ahsoka, like I'm okay with the ones that are like Mandalorian related, and Bo-Katan or a Kryze showing up makes sense. In the same way that I was talking about like Boba Fett showing up makes sense. And it just seems like it's hard for me to think about how Ahsoka,
it's got to be related to Jedi stuff, like Baby Yoda, and it's got to be just one episode. Like, please just keep it to one episode, have it be the crossover that introduces her series.
So that's kind of the fear I have, but I don't think they'll handle it poorly. It's just I really hope they don't get out of the smaller universe or get into the smaller universe, higher stakes set way of handling everything.
It's a little frustrating too, because we definitely won't know for a while, because they're not going to bring Ahsoka out in episode 2. I don't think.
Not going to front load all the appearances.
I feel like it'll probably tie into that character we saw in the trailer, the kind of mysterious dark Jedi. Sorry? In Corrinland? Yeah. I feel like there'll be maybe kind of a more Force-centric enemy in this season, and maybe that'll be something that's just an enemy for one episode, and that's what Ahsoka and co deal with. But yeah, I mean, like I think it's gonna be good. I'm nervous about it. Yeah.
All right.
If we see Ahsoka, do we see like Sabine? Do we see like others from the Rebels crew? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like Sabine's probably. Sabine is another character that I could see showing up.
She makes sense.
The whole Mandalorian angle. If Ezra shows up, that would probably be a stretch. He's a bit busy whaling right now. Although Rahul, if he wants to play Ezra in something,
it would be perfect.
But I don't know if Mandalorian season 2 is going to be the place for that.
I was kind of getting annoyed at all his posts, and then I was like, I'm the one who's taking this too seriously. Oh, I've got a question for you. How do you think they did the banthas in this? Because the original banthas were elephants. I'm pretty sure they didn't use elephants for this. They might have, though. I'm not sure. Were they just fully animated, you think?
I wasn't... There were parts where it seemed like they were probably CGI. But I really don't know. I have to look at it again, because
I've been trying to figure it out, and they're really well done. If they are... I mean, regardless of how they're done, they're very well done. I will also say the dogs. I forget what are the names of the dogs used by the Sand People, the hounds.
I don't know.
They were very, very well done as well. Like comparing, because they're in episode 2, I think, when Anakin goes to the village. Comparing what they look like in that to what they look like in this, like the technology has just been crazy. I feel like they were maybe some sort of combination of like a real animal maybe and something else, because they're so well done, and it's getting so hard to tell.
Yeah. Well, there's the Kangaroo Rats as well. Those were cute.
We were definitely ripped off of a scene with Yoda. I assume that's a Womp Rat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were ripped off from because the concept art shows a scene of Baby Yoda playing with one, and would have been really cute.
Everything Baby Yoda plays with is really cute. So
yeah, someone in the chat said they were Oliphants.
Timothy Oliphant was just in the show to play all the banthas. He just doesn't show up as himself.
Aren't there Womp Rats like that in the special edition for New Hope? Like when they're going into town, are they not Womp Rats? People are saying Womp Rats are larger. I mean, they say Luke says that they can grow to that size, but are they always? I don't know. Oh yeah, I guess Womp Rats are always pretty big. Well, I don't know what those little Kangaroo Rats are, but you can see them in A New Hope as well, jumping around, and maybe even the prequels. I'm not sure.
Creatures of Tatooine.
Let's see. Yeah, I want to see if I can figure this out. Tatooine mouse. Unidentified Tatooine mouse species. Ladies and gentlemen, we got... Oh, no, that's not it. That's the mouse. That's in Jabba's palace. I looked at Tatooine rodent and Jawa came up. Kind of rude. I really hope... Have we seen one of those frogs that Jabba... Like, outside of Jabba's palace? Yeah, in this show?
I don't think we have so far.
I love those things.
But either way,
yeah.
Anything else we need to talk about here?
No, just keep an eye open on our socials. Again, don't necessarily expect an episode for a couple of weeks, but it's possible. We'll see. Other than that, no, I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. We will have more Mandalorian coverage. Maybe once we're back, we'll try to cover Mandalorian as well as get back into the Young Jedi Knight stuff. Mm-hmm. But let you know.
I'd honestly be down to do an episode every week. Well, I guess that's not gonna be possible because then we're not reading at all. I don't know. I'm really enjoying this series, so I'd like to cover it somehow.
Well, we could, if there are days where we could do the book and then do, because it'd basically be, if we're going with every other week doing a book,
mm-hmm.
then we could just on some weeks end up doing
like double
episodes.
Yeah. And then release maybe 2 a week, like record them at the same time, then cut them up or something.
Yeah. Well, it'd be like maybe on the Thursday night we do the Young Jedi Knights, because the books we're doing right now are really short.
Yeah.
And then because we're not going to be out of the Young Jedi Knight stuff for a while, and then if we're doing like every other week we have one of those, and then every week we cover the episode, because it'll only be like 2 or 3 weeks where that doubling up happens, and I think that's manageable for both of us.
Yep.
Or it should.
Yeah, I mean the books are pretty short. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this, just a reminder that we record Tapcaf every week. We release a new episode every week. You can find us by searching Tapcaf Transmissions. That's TAPCAF. There's no E there. Transmissions on Spotify, iTunes, most of your podcast platforms, or you can just tune in. We record these 1 week it's on Corey's channel, the next week it's on mine. Usually we talk about Star Wars books, but we're moving into other stuff. So if you have any, I guess, comments about what should we have them email us?
I feel like right now the next episode we're probably going to be doing is Jedi or Darkest Night.
But feel free to email us about the your thoughts on Mandalorian, and if there's an appropriate place for us to talk about it, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so you can follow us on Twitter at Tapcaf Podcast,
mm-hmm.
I think, and we'll keep you guys posted there. That'll be where we probably put out first when the next episode is going to be. But
make sure to leave 5-star reviews too, because that is pretty wizard if you do that.
Yeah, and if you don't want to do that, you can leave 5 1-star reviews. And it all adds up to the same number of stars.
Oh, yes, that reminds me. For all my American friends, vote early and vote often. But goodbye, everybody.
Bye.